Hello, and welcome to a long, slow journey beneath the stars of an ancient river plain. Listen for a moment to the sound of wind moving through reeds and mud, a sound older than our words. Imagine the Euphrates as a silver ribbon that unspools across flat land, carrying both time and dust. Night in this land is patient, and it teaches people to speak in low voices. By that slow light, stories are passed from hands to hands, from someone's breath into another's ear. In the hush before dawn, tents and reed huts breathe with their inhabitants and hold the day's residue. Long before any great walls rose, there was the quiet work of planting and the quieter work of waiting. Babylon, as a great name and a great city, would arrive much later, but its breath is older than its bricks. Here, in the cradle of rivers, human lives braided with water and sky, in ways that were almost ritual. Farmers learned to read the moods of the floods and to coax grain from the silt left behind. They learned to watch the moon's face, as if it were an elder speaking in a voice only half heard. Communities grew where water pooled, where reeds could be bundled into shelter, and where fish fed small bellies. The earliest houses were made of reed and mud, pressed and dried in the persistent sun. Those houses smelled of smoke, wet clay, and the faint sweetness of baked grain. Children ran barefoot in soft mud and learned to hold a clay bowl before they could hold a chisel. Elders sat by low fires and traced with a stick the histories of seasons on the compacted earth. They spoke of gods who rode the wind and of ancestors who taught them which marsh grass to use for roofing. They spoke of the tricks of irrigation and of the goodwill required to share a canal. In these low voices, the first laws of daily life were formed, not inscribed on stone, but felt in practice. You can imagine one such elder as a keeper of small certainties: where to plant, when to mend, whom to trust. His stories were not yet long histories. They were the scaffolding for histories that would come later. A reed hut by a canal had horizons of its own, measured in fish, in bread, in the safe return of a father from a distant market. Villages exchanged more than goods. They exchanged stories, seasonal knowledge, and the names of the stars. Names are important, and in this place they began to be fixed to tablets and tokens for the sake of trade and memory. The first marks pressed into wet clay were practical things: counts of grain, names of buyers, measures of land. Those crude marks were the first stitches in a textile of record that would later be called writing. Over generations, these marks became more deliberate, then more symbolic, and finally, after long patience, they became script. The miracle of script is less a lightning flash than the patient bending of habit into habit, like building a path by walking the same route. Along the Euphrates, people walked those routes until the routes wore the land into lanes of commerce and conversation. Small market gatherings swelled into bustling lanes where merchants traded pottery for woven cloth and for the promise of distant tin. From this daily commerce rose new roles: artisan, scribe, priest, and slowly the figure we call king. But in the beginning, before kings claimed the sky as a banner, people measured seasons and made offerings at small shrines. Those shrines were modest and intimate, their altars smelling of oil and barley, their lamps dim and human-sized. Over time, some towns became slightly larger, and a temple might be rebuilt a little more carefully, a little more grandly. These shifts were not sudden. They accumulated like layers of silt along a riverbank. Babylon's name would one day come to stand for splendor, for walls, and for law. Yet it began as a small place of reeds and trade. To place Babylon in your mind now, begin with a river terrace and a few dozen mud brick houses. Think of water channels cut by wooden spades and patched by communal hands. Think of people leaning into the canal's edge, lowering simple nets and calling to one another. These early scenes are the pulse beneath later monuments. Without this pulse, the great names lose their meaning. People in these early days understood that survival depended on cooperation. and cooperation depended on trust. Trust was a fragile species of wealth that required telling and retelling of mutual obligations, so they learned to use clay tokens and marks as ways to make promises visible and durable. A clay token stored in a small pot might stand in for a sheep, a measure of grain, a future labor. When these tokens were pressed and repeated, a language of commerce was born, and with it the possibility of memory beyond the human lifespan. Memory and law co-emerge. When you can record obligations, you can also adjudicate them. This slow logic is the seed of what later would be carved in stone and read by distant generations. Imagine then a sand-swept plain where at dusk the sky is full of traders, sails, and constellations. A sky like that teaches a kind of attention to time, to navigation, to prophecy. Babylon's later astronomers and omen readers grew from this attention to the sky, but in these first chapters it is only an interest in the stars. They watch the moon for planting, the sun for harvest, and the migration of birds as a weather report written in motion. Small acts of observation stack, and in time a whole science arises from the accumulation of careful noticing. There was no hurry in this work, only generations of patience and the occasional triumph of a prediction. Imagine the soundscape now. Reed flutes, the slap of oars, distant calls of market criers, and the steady whisper of wind through palms. Into this soundscape fit the low-toned stories elders told, stories that mixed fact and image until the border between them softened. One favorite story might tell of a hidden god who rides the wind at night and brings rain to the chosen field. Children listened with wide eyes and fell asleep with the god's name like a lullaby. In those lullabies, faith is not doctrine. It is the felt certainty that some benevolent order watches over the cultivated plain. The gods, in the simplest telling, are intensifications of natural forces rendered attentive to human needs. They are the sky made personal, the river given a mouth that can speak, the storm granted intention. Later, these intimate gods would be organized into pantheons and temples, but at first they are just near presences. You may hear, in memory, an old woman tapping a finger against a clay bowl as she recites the day's debts. Her recitation is both practical and ritual, because bookkeeping is also a prayer for fairness. The practice of recording obligations becomes a way of maintaining social balance, and balance is survival. From such humble acts rise institutions. Scribal schools that teach the wedge-shaped marks, workshops where potters learn to center the clay. Imagine a child apprenticed to a potter, his fingers learning the curve of a jar while an elder outside chants the names of gods. The child's life is a measured rhythm of repetition and observation, building skills that will outlast any single life. In many ways, the first civilizations are collective artists, making durable things out of transient human needs. They shape bricks the way poets shape lines, each brick a syllable in a long, patterned sentence we call a city. Picture the hands that laid the first mud bricks for a small enclosure that would later become a foundation for greater walls. Those hands are ordinary, and their ordinariness is the engine of history. Without them, the most famous kings vanish like smoke. So let us honor the builders as we begin this larger story, and let us listen for their footsteps in the long quiet between great events. Before we move on to later chapters, imagine a panoramic view where the river curves like a sleeping serpent. See clusters of reed huts, giving way to low galleries of brick and clay as population grows in a modest arc. Above them, birds trace calligraphies across the sky, and on clear nights the stars stand like tiny nails holding the dark in place. If you travel in thought from the river toward the center of such a settlement, you will find a slightly taller mound. That mound hints at a sanctuary, a place of shared ritual where the community brings offerings, seeks blessing, and feels its ties made visible. This modest sanctuary is the ancestor of the grand temples and ziggurats that will arise later. but now it is human-sized and humble. In the centuries that follow, many things will change. Pottery shapes, political alliances, the flow of armies. Yet underneath those changes will always be the same human concerns we have already heard: food, shelter, memory, and the desire to be counted. Babylon will emerge from this long sediment of human practice as a name that means much more than its stone. It will mean law and learning, earthly splendor and spiritual weight. But remember that these meanings grew slowly, like roots searching for water. For now, in this chapter, we rest in the soft beginning, the river, the reed huts, the slow formation of trust. If you allow your breath to match the river's cadence, you will move into the next part of our tale with a steady heart. We will continue, in the following chapters, to follow the lives of those who built, wrote, and prayed in this place, and to listen to how small daily acts became the substance of empire. This narrative draws on the broad historical arc compiled in your source file. Now let the wind and water carry you onward, and when you are ready, we will step deeper into the slow waking of a city that will one day be called Babylon. And now, as the quiet of the river's night fades into a pale morning, we return to the land where our story breathes forward. The stars dim softly above the wide plain, and the wind shifts, carrying the smell of wet clay and distant smoke. You may still hear echoes from the last chapter, the hush of reed huts, the steady rhythm of the Euphrates lingering like a memory at the edge of dawn. But today, we step closer. Today, we enter the story through the eyes of a young brickmaker on his first morning in the small settlement that will one day be called Babylon. He walks barefoot along a narrow path where dust rises in soft clouds around his ankles. The sun is still low, a thin streak of gold sliding over the horizon. In his hands is a simple wooden mold, used for shaping wet clay into bricks. It is worn along the edges, smoothed by the hands of his father and grandfather before him. He carries it like a promise, though he does not yet know what kind of future it will help build. When he reaches the settlement, it does not look like the stories travelers whisper. There are no towering walls, no grand temples, no bustling markets, only a scattering of mud huts, a few reed shelters leaning toward one another, and narrow channels where water glimmers. The early Babylon is little more than a village perched beside a bend of the river, humble and fragile, but alive in its own way. A thin mist clings to the fields where barley is beginning to grow. Oxen, slow and patient, pull wooden plows through the damp soil. Their breath rises like smoke into the morning air. Men call out to one another, guiding the animals with familiar ease. Wooden carts creak under the weight of clay pots and woven baskets. The low sound of wooden wheels over hardened ground becomes the percussion of daily life. Nearby, two children run toward the brick pits, laughing as the mud splashes around their feet. The brickmaker watches them with a soft smile, remembering when his own days were filled only with play. But today he has work to do. He kneels beside a pool where workers have mixed clay, water, and straw until it folds together like dough. The mixture is cool beneath his hands as he presses into it, testing its weight and texture. His teacher, an older man with broad shoulders and a quiet voice, nods approvingly. "It is good clay today," the elder says. "Strong enough for houses, strong enough for walls." The brickmaker cannot yet imagine what these walls will become, but he listens with respect. He fills the mold with the heavy mixture, scraping off the excess with a flat piece of wood. Each movement is slow, practiced, almost meditative. When he lifts the mold away, a perfect brick sits in the dirt, glistening in the weak light. Dozens more will follow, laid out in neat rows to dry beneath the rising sun. As he works, his teacher speaks again, in a tone that holds both pride and patience. "Remember this," the old man says. "Every kingdom, no matter how mighty, begins in the hands of people who know the earth." The words settle into the young man's heart like a seed waiting to sprout. He He glances around, taking in the scene. Women carrying bundles of reeds walk toward the riverbank. Fishermen haul in nets heavy with shimmering silver bodies. A potter turns a wheel by hand, coaxing wet clay upward into graceful shapes. A small shrine of reeds and mud stands at the center of the settlement, its altar decorated with shells and simple offerings. The villagers come and go, touching the ritual stones with quiet reverence. Here they speak to their gods not in grand temples, but in whispers and humble gestures. The brickmaker has grown up with these rituals, but only now does he understand that a city grows the way a story grows, word by word, hand by hand. By midday, the village is busy. The sun beats down, warming the drying bricks until their surfaces crack with delicate patterns. The young man wipes sweat from his brow and moves toward a trench where workers are digging a canal. The sound of shovels biting into earth mingles with the rustling of reeds and the grunt of oxen straining against ropes. The canal is narrow now, only a modest attempt to direct water from the great river toward fields that lie thirsty beyond. But to the villagers, this waterway is a lifeline. It is the difference between famine and abundance, between a settlement that survives and one that vanishes into memory. Standing at the edge of the trench, the brickmaker hands fresh bricks to the workers who are lining the walls of the canal. Each brick is pressed into place with care, forming a foundation that will hold back the water during flood seasons. A thin film of mud glues them together, as though the earth itself approves of their efforts. The workers do not rush. They move with the patience of people who understand that the land must be shaped slowly, respectfully. Later in the afternoon, the village gathers to raise the frame of a new building, a larger one than usual. Its purpose is simple: a sheltered space for meetings, trade, and the keeping of shared records. Men lift wooden beams into place, while women bring baskets of reeds and ropes. The air fills with the rhythmic thumping of mallets, the rough scraping of wood against wood, and the comforting murmur of shared labor. The brickmaker helps press mud into the gaps, smoothing it with practiced fingers. His hands are coated in earth, and he feels strangely connected to the ground beneath him. In this moment, he senses a truth that will echo across countless generations. Cities are not born in an instant. They are coaxed into being by the patient insistence of ordinary people. As the shadows lengthen, the villagers light small lamps along the canal. Warm flickers of flame dance on the surface of the water. Children chase each other between racks of drying bricks. Elders sit by the shrine, preparing offerings for the evening ritual. One elder, a woman with lines deep in her face, calls the brickmaker over. "You have worked well today," she says softly. "But remember, young one, what you build is more than walls." She lifts a clay tablet, etched with markings the brickmaker does not fully understand. "These marks," she says, tapping lightly, "are new, but they will change everything." He leans closer. The symbols are simple, yet deliberate. Some look like grains in a bowl. Others resemble cattle horns. Still others are only straight lines or curves pressed into the clay with a sharpened reed. "These are our words," she says. "Our memory, our agreements, our debts, our harvests." The marks tell who has given and who has received. They tell how much grain is owed. They show how many animals have been born, sold, or lost. The brickmaker touches the tablet with tentative fingers. "It is a strange kind of magic," he whispers. The elder smiles. "It is not magic, though it may feel that way. It is how we remember, and when people remember together, they become something more than a village. They become a city." Her words settle heavily in the brickmaker's heart, as though they have carved a new space inside him. He returns to the open ground where the sun is beginning to set. The sky flushes deep amber, and the air cools into something sweet and gentle. From this vantage point, he sees the small world around him, the reed huts leaning like old friends against the breeze, the new building framed in fresh timber, children tugging on their mothers' sleeves, fishermen searing fish over small fires, farmers washing their hands in the canal they helped shape. Each of these sights feels ordinary, yet together they form a quiet miracle. This village is not yet Babylon, but its pulse is unmistakable. The brickmaker looks at the bricks drying in long rows and imagines them rising into higher walls someday. He imagines the canal widening, branching like veins across the plain. He imagines the shrine growing into a larger temple, one with tall walls and a grand courtyard. But he knows these visions are far away. For now, he is part of a small world built from dust, water, and effort. The wind stirs again, carrying the smell of firewood and wet clay. He closes his eyes for a moment and listens. He hears the village breathing soft, steady, hopeful. He realizes that the village is not growing because someone ordered it to grow. It grows because hands like his shape the earth each day with faith and perseverance, brick by brick, wall by wall, line by line upon a clay tablet. Every gesture, every task, every shared burden is part of a larger story unfolding slowly, deliberately. He opens his eyes and feels the weight of his wooden mold, familiar and firm. He understands now what his teacher meant when he said that every kingdom begins with people who know the earth. Empires do not rise from ambition alone. They rise from the slow rhythm of work, from the dust on a young man's feet, from the mud drying on his hands. And so he walks home through the fading light, past huts and fires and the soft song of mothers soothing their children. Behind him, the canal glimmers like a newborn promise. Before him, the future lies unshaped, waiting for more hands, more bricks, more stories. As the first stars appear overhead, the young brickmaker whispers to himself a truth he has only just begun to understand. Great cities grow from simple work, and every empire begins in the dirt. He smiles quietly as he steps into the warm glow of his family's home. Tomorrow he will rise again with the sun, lift clay from the earth, and mold it into form. Tomorrow he will take one more step toward a city that does not yet know its name. And tomorrow, like today, the village will breathe, expand, and gather strength in small, steady ways. In this gentle beginning, the foundations of Babylon are set, not with fanfare or proclamation, but with the steady beat of human hands shaping a world from dust. And so the story continues, moving like a slow river toward the next chapter. When you are ready, we will follow that river deeper into the rise of a city that will one day shine across empires. Night settles gently over the small settlement as the final glow of the sun fades from the sky. The young brickmaker, weary from a day spent shaping clay and lining the canal walls, walks slowly back toward his home. The scent of wet earth still clings to his hands, and traces of dust cling to his clothes like a second skin. The sounds of the village drift around him, low voices, crackling fires, the soft cooing of animals settling into sleep. But beneath those familiar sounds, something else stirs, a deeper quiet, a stillness that feels expectant, as though the air itself is holding its breath. He feels it before he fully notices it. A faint hum, a soft vibration in the night, almost like a whisper. Without meaning to, he slows his steps. Without understanding why, he turns toward the small shrine near the center of the settlement. And here, our story continues, flowing from the world of labor and clay into the world of incense and shadow. For in Mesopotamia, work and worship are not separate things. They are two threads of the same tapestry. The brickmaker moves closer to the shrine, drawn as though by an unseen hand. A dim golden glow flickers from within, painting the air with soft light. The smell of incense drifts outward, warm, resinous, sweet. It wraps around him gently, quieting the last echoes of the day. Inside the shrine, villagers kneel in a semicircle, their faces illuminated by oil lamps placed carefully along the walls. The lamps cast trembling halos across the mud brick surface, turning the walls into living, breathing shapes. Each flame seems to pulse with intention, as though the gods themselves are leaning close. The priest stands at the center, robed in simple cloth dyed with earth pigments. His voice rises and falls like a slow tide as he recites an ancient chant, one older than any building in the settlement. The chant is soft, steady, almost hypnotic. The brickmaker kneels among the others, letting the sound seep into him like warm water. He feels the day's fatigue soften, loosening its grip. Around him, villagers close their eyes, their breaths deepening in unison. In this dim, intimate space, the distance between heaven and earth feels smaller. The Mesopotamians know no world without gods. To them, every drop of rain is the blessing of a deity. Every gust of wind is a whisper from a divine mouth. Every star is a watchful eye. Their universe is vast and populated, filled with hundreds of gods, each with their own realm, their own moods, their own stories. There are gods of storms, gods of rivers, gods of reeds and cattle, gods of dawn and night. There are guardian spirits who hover near families and great cosmic figures who govern the cycles of the heavens. And above them all, shaping the order of the world, stands Marduk. The priest begins to tell his story now, his voice deep and resonant. It is a story the villagers know well, yet they listen with quiet anticipation. Stories like this are not merely told, they are lived, breathed, felt. The priest speaks of the beginning, when the world was only swirling water and endless night. He speaks of Apsu, the sweet water, and Tiamat, the salt sea, two ancient beings whose embrace gave birth to the younger gods. He speaks of laughter, of mischief, of the growing energy of those younger gods as they filled the darkness with life and noise. And then he speaks of conflict, of chaos rising, of battles waged in the unseen depths. The air thickens with story, and the villagers lean close as the priest's voice softens. Then he says the name, Marduk. It hums through the shrine like a low chime. The brickmaker feels the hairs on his arms rise. Marduk, bringer of order, creator of structure, ruler of storms and seasons. The priest describes Marduk stepping forward, radiant with power, his eyes bright as twin suns. He describes the great battle against Tiamat, a battle so fierce that the sky itself trembled. He tells how Marduk split the vast body of the sea dragon to form the heavens above and the earth below, how he arranged the stars in their places and taught the winds their paths, how he tamed the wildness of creation and shaped a world where humans could live, farm, build, and dream. As he speaks, the flames flicker on cue, sending glimmers of gold across the villagers' faces. The brickmaker imagines the scene as though he were watching it unfold before his eyes. A sky carved from chaos, a world sculpted by divine hands, a future city chosen by gods. The priest lifts a bronze bowl, its surface rippling with reflected light. He tilts it gently, offering the wine inside to the unseen watchers above. The glow dances on the bowl's curves, casting warm reflections onto the walls. Another priest shakes a dish of polished metal pieces. The sound is delicate, soft chimes, light as the flutter of bird wings. To the villagers, these sounds are not mere noise, they are signals, pathways for prayers to travel upward. Each chime is a message, each flicker of light is a plea. The villagers bow their heads again as the priest prays for rain at the right time, for calm winds during the harvest, for protection from floods. In Mesopotamia, the balance between life and disaster is thin. The gods are not faraway beings, they are constant presences who must be respected, honored, pleased. The brickmaker breathes deeply, letting the warmth of the ritual settle over him. He feels a connection to something larger than the settlement, larger than his work, larger than his own life. The gods feel near tonight, near enough to touch, near enough to bless. A quiet certainty fills the room. This land is chosen. This place is watched. This future city, though small now, holds the attention of divine eyes. The priest steps forward and places his palm on the altar stone. He whispers a final prayer, one of guidance, one of protection, one of hope. The villagers whisper in unison, repeating his words. Their voices blend into a soft, gentle harmony that moves through the shrine like wind through grass. The brickmaker's heart swells as he joins them. He sees Marduk not as a distant god, but as a guardian who walks beside the river, who watches the kilns, who blesses the bricks. He imagines the god standing tall in the shadows, his presence woven into the very air. As the ritual ends, the lamps burn lower, dipping into near darkness. The incense thins, its final curls drifting toward the doorway. The villagers stand slowly, some stretching their tired limbs, others wiping quiet tears from their cheeks. Faith, for them, is not a performance. It is an anchor. It shapes their choices, their fears, their hopes. It gives meaning to the dust they mold, to the seeds they plant, to the walls they raise. The brickmaker lingers in the shrine after the others begin to leave. He watches the lamps as they flicker softly. He listens to the bronze dish's final trembling hum. He breathes in the faint sweetness of the fading incense. He feels at peace in a way he cannot explain. When he steps outside, the night is cool and tender. Stars scatter across the sky like sparks from a heavenly fire. The moon hangs low, wrapped in a thin veil of cloud. The village sleeps, but the land feels awake, alive with the quiet presence of gods who roam unseen. He walks toward the riverbank, drawn as though by memory. The water glimmers faintly, catching light from the fading lamps. He sits and lets the cool air settle around him. He thinks about the story he heard, the creation of the world, the rise of Marduk, the shaping of the sky. He thinks of the day's work, the bricks drying in the fields, the canal walls waiting to be expanded. He thinks of the future, though he cannot picture it clearly. He only feels its pull, soft, insistent, warm. Behind him, the shrine glows faintly. Before him, the river flows steadily toward tomorrow. He closes his eyes and whispers a final thought to the wind. May the gods walk with us. And in the deep quiet of the night, the world seems to answer not in words, but in a softness that wraps around him like a gentle cloak. Here, in this sacred stillness, Babylon's spiritual heart begins to beat, not in grand temples or towering ziggurats, but in the humble faith of people who see the divine in every breath of wind. And that faith will guide them as the city grows, stone by stone, story by story, into something greater than they can yet imagine. When you are ready, we will follow them onward, deeper into the rising dawn of Babylon. The first light of dawn touches the horizon as a quiet, amber glow spreads across the waking land. A merchant named Naram rises before the sun, as he has done every day since he first learned to trade. He steps out of his small home, adjusting the simple cloth wrapped around his shoulders, and breathes in the cool morning air. The world smells of clay, river mist, and the faint promise of warm bread. He pauses for a moment, letting the gentle breeze brush against his face, and listens as the city stirs in soft murmurs. Babylon, still young but growing quickly, stretches itself like a waking giant beneath the pale sky. Naram begins walking toward the main street, where commerce breathes its first breaths of the day. His sandals tap lightly against the packed earth, leaving faint prints that the morning light slowly reveals. Around him, small houses of mud brick glow softly, their flat roofs catching the sun's earliest rays. From one doorway, a woman sweeps dust into a neat pile, humming a tune older than memory. From another, a potter steps out carrying a still warm jar, checking it for imperfections as he walks. Farther ahead, the river glimmers like a polished blade, and the silhouettes of boats begin to move along its calm surface. Naram smiles at the sight of the boats, for they carry goods from villages far upstream: grain, fish, timber, and wool. These early boats are the veins and arteries of Babylon, bringing lifeblood into the heart of the growing city. He moves closer to the docks, where workers are already shouting greetings to one another in cheerful tones. The wooden planks of the river pier creak under the weight of men lifting baskets of barley and sacks of lentils. A fisherman raises his hand in greeting as Naram passes, holding a net full of glittering river fish. Naram lifts his hand in return, his steps slow and unhurried. He does not need to rush. The city is still waking, and the day is long. The docking ropes slap gently against the posts as a new boat approaches, guided by a pair of oarsmen chanting a rhythmic song. Their voices blend with the soft clatter of wooden crates and the rustle of woven baskets being unloaded. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs light, bright, as though the morning itself has found a voice. Naram turns away from the docks and begins walking up the sloped path toward the main street. As he moves higher, he sees more of the settlement spread beneath him like a tapestry of clay and reed. This is not the small village he remembers from his younger days. It is busier, louder, bigger. New houses rise each month. New workshops appear where fields once lay open. New faces arrive from distant towns, drawn by the promise of trade, work, and opportunity. Babylon is beginning to buzz with the subtle electricity of growth. At the top of the path, Naram steps onto the main thoroughfare, a long, wide street that runs like a spine through the heart of the settlement. The street is not paved, not yet, but its packed earth has been smoothed by countless footsteps. Merchants, farmers, craftsmen, priests, and scribes walk this path each day. Here, the pulse of Babylon beats the strongest. Naram inhales deeply as a familiar scent drifts toward him. Warm bread. A baker stands beside a clay oven, pulling flat loaves from its glowing interior with practiced ease. Steam rises in soft curls from each loaf, carrying the fragrance of wheat and fire. The baker nods at Naram and offers him a small piece. Naram accepts it gratefully, biting into the warm crust as he walks. The bread melts softly on his tongue, comforting and earthy. Nearby, a young boy rehearses letters in the dust, guided by a stern but patient scribe. The scribe holds a reed stylus, tapping the ground softly each time the boy hesitates. Naram listens to their murmured lesson symbols, sounds, meanings, all the delicate threads that will soon form Babylon's written memory. A few steps farther, a carpenter swings his hammer, shaping planks for a new stall that will open later in the week. The sound of wood striking wood echoes through the morning air, measured and steady. It blends with the clatter of pottery, the shuffle of livestock, and the chatter of early traders preparing their goods. Naram moves deeper into the street, passing a group of shepherds who have brought wool from the outlying pastures. Bundles of soft fleece rest at their feet, pale and cloud-like in the early light. They speak quietly, negotiating with a cloth maker whose eyes gleam with the anticipation of new threads to spin. Across from them, sacks of grain line the entrance to the cereal market. Farmers open the sacks with pride, letting the golden kernels spill through their fingers. The grains catch the morning sun like tiny sparks. Naram nods approvingly. A good harvest means busy stalls, bustling streets, and prosperous trade. Farther along, craftsmen display their new wares: polished bowls, painted jars, finely carved amulets shaped like small protective spirits. He pauses to examine a clay tablet etched with careful lines. A record of grain delivery, perhaps, or a list of debts owed. Scribes are becoming more common now. Their knowledge is valuable, and their hands shape information as surely as brickmakers shape clay. The structure of the city is beginning to form, though many do not yet see it clearly. Naram sees it. He sees the classes forming naturally. Farmers arriving at dawn with crops, merchants like himself, preparing to trade and bargain, craftsmen shaping clay, wood, metal, scribes recording the movement of goods, priests tending the shrines and interpreting omens, each group moving in harmony, unknowingly becoming the foundation of a complex society. Babylon is no longer a village. It is becoming a city. Naram continues walking, letting the rhythm of the street guide his steps. He feels the city's pulse beneath his feet, steady and growing. The air is filled with scents: baked bread, damp wool, warm clay, crushed herbs. He hears laughter, arguments, greetings, negotiations. He feels the mild heat radiating from bricks newly removed from kilns. A sense of movement fills him forward, upward, expanding just like Babylon itself. He stops at a small rise where the street curves gently and looks back over everything he has passed. The docks, the markets, the workshops, the homes, the shrine's thin column of incense smoke rising quietly into the sky. All of it feels alive, connected, purposeful. Babylon is waking. It is stretching its limbs, sharpening its senses, preparing to grow into something larger than any one person can imagine. Naram feels a thrill run through him, a quiet excitement, a subtle spark. He knows he is walking through the earliest breath of something destined to become great. And as the sun rises fully, illuminating the clay walls with warm gold, he whispers to himself with a smile, "The city is growing. It grows while we trade, while we build, while we breathe." Every morning, it becomes a little more alive. Naram begins walking again as the sunlight softens into a mellow gold that washes across the widening street. Merchants from distant villages arrive in small clusters, carrying baskets wrapped in woven mats. Their footsteps create a quiet, rhythmic rustle against the dusty ground. Some lead donkeys burdened with jars of oil or bundles of dyed thread. Others carry long bundles of reeds that will become mats, roofs, and fences. Naram greets them with a respectful nod, recognizing many faces from seasons past. Trade is not merely exchange. It is relationship, memory, and trust built over years of familiar footsteps. The visitors smile in return, setting their goods down beneath the rising shade of makeshift stalls. A gentle breeze moves between them, lifting the edges of their clothing like small, playful hands. Naram's gaze drifts upward to the rooftops where early risers sit quietly, watching the street brighten. Elderly men sip warm beer from clay cups, their voices gravelly with the first murmurs of the day. Women braid their daughters' hair while humming soft melodies that have traveled through generations. The city feels layered in these moments, full of the old, full of the young, full of the in-between. Naram turns a corner, entering a section of the street where artisans work side by side, their crafts blending into a gentle symphony. He passes a workshop where a stone cutter shapes small figurines with delicate taps of a bronze chisel. Each tap is soft but purposeful, echoing like distant rain on a rooftop. Nearby, a leatherworker stretches hide across a wooden frame, smoothing its edges with patient hands. The sharp scent of tanned leather mixes with the sweetness of baked bread drifting from a nearby oven. Children pause to watch the artisans, their eyes wide with the curiosity that comes from seeing magic crafted by human hands. Naram pauses at a spice vendor's stall where woven baskets overflow with dried herbs. Coriander, cumin, mint, leafy greens bundled tight with thin rope. The scents rise like invisible threads winding through the morning air. The vendor offers Naram a pinch of something fragrant, and he presses it between his fingers, releasing its warm aroma. He breathes deeply, letting it settle into him like a gentle invitation to linger. In the distance comes the steady beat of a drum, signaling the opening of the wool market. Naram turns toward the sound, weaving through the forming crowd. The wool market sits at a crossroads where farmers meet cloth makers and the space is already alive with voices. Men hold up bundles of freshly shorn fleece, running their hands through the soft fibers. Women inspect the wool with trained eyes, assessing texture, weight, and warmth. Children chase one another around the piles, laughing as they disappear behind the snowy mounds. Scribes sit nearby beneath an awning, ready to record transactions on small clay tablets. They touch their reed styluses to the clay with gentle precision, capturing numbers and names in quiet strokes. Naram watches them for a moment, marveling at how these symbols, simple shapes pressed into wet earth, hold the memory of a city. He continues forward, drawn by a cluster of voices near the grain market. Farmers lift sacks of barley and wheat from their carts, showing their harvest with pride. The grains shimmer in the sunlight, golden and abundant. Women negotiate prices with steady, measured voices. Some laugh softly when an offer is too low, shaking their heads but smiling all the same. Trade here is as much conversation as transaction, a dance shaped by familiarity and good humor. Naram approaches a familiar farmer, an older man named Lugal who always greets him warmly. They clasp forearms in greeting, sharing a moment of mutual respect. The scent of crushed grain lingers around them, warm and comforting. Lugal tells Naram that the rains were kind this year, that the fields were rich, that the earth was generous. Naram listens with gratitude, for prosperity in the fields means prosperity for the whole city. He purchases several baskets of barley, marking the first success of his day. A boy from Lugal's family carries the baskets to Naram's stall, his eyes shining with pride at being trusted with such a task. Naram pats the boy's shoulder and thanks him, watching as the child beams. This city is growing, Naram thinks, but at its heart it is still built by hands, small hands, old hands, skilled hands, learning hands. The sun climbs higher, and the street becomes a river of movement. The clamor increases, but it is a gentle, living clamor, the kind that warms the spirit rather than overwhelms it. Voices swirl like threads weaving a tapestry. The bleating of goats, the creak of cartwheels, the bark of a dog chasing a chicken, the laughter of young apprentices carrying tools twice their size. Naram turns toward a row of newly built workshops at the far end of the street. These buildings did not exist a year ago. Now they stand firm, their brick walls baked into ruddiness by the sun. A potter wheels a fresh plate from his workshop, still steaming from the kiln. The heat rises from it in soft, wavering ribbon. Beside him, a group of young workers stack red-hot bricks into neat towers. The bricks radiate warmth that pulses lightly against Naram's skin as he walks past. He marvels at the transformation happening around him. Once, this was a sparse path leading through scattered huts and empty fields. Now it is becoming a true city street-wide, lively, full of possibility. He thinks of the brickmaker he met some weeks ago, a hard-working young man shaping the earth into the future. Perhaps some of these very bricks were molded by his hands. The thought warms Naram's heart. Every person contributes to Babylon's rise, whether through trade, labor, prayer, or teaching. He hears a familiar chant coming from a nearby courtyard where a scribe trains young learners. The children sit in a semicircle, scratching simple symbols into clay strips. The scribe's voice is steady as he guides them through the shaped symbols that carry knowledge, prediction, memory. Naram pauses to watch, moved by the sight of small fingers pressing lines that will one day shape the city's destiny. Knowledge is becoming a craft here, as essential as pottery and brickwork. He closes his eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the city wash over him like a warm tide. He can feel the difference between this morning and mornings long ago. Then, the village was quiet, hesitant, young. Now, Babylon breathes deeply, confidently, as though aware of the greatness waiting on its horizon. Naram opens his eyes and continues walking, eager to see more. He moves toward the northern end of the street, where the market opens into a broader square. Workers are setting up stalls draped with colorful woven cloth. Red, blue, gold, and earth-brown fabrics flutter gently in the breeze. Naram's chest swells with pride. These colors were rare once. Now they brighten the marketplace like blooming flowers. He sees pottery decorated with new designs, swirling patterns inspired by river currents and bird flight. He sees tools made sharper and stronger than before, crafted by metalworkers who have begun experimenting with new techniques. He sees offerings in front of the shrine, fresh flowers, fruit, small tokens of gratitude left by early worshippers. He feels the city's heartbeat echo beneath all these signs. A steady pulse, a quiet rise, a promise. Babylon is no longer a settlement awakening from sleep. It is a city stepping fully into the day. Naram steps into the wide square just as the sun lifts fully above the rooftops, casting long, golden rays across the bustling marketplace. The square feels different from the narrow streets he has walked through, a broad, open space filled with movement, color, and early morning warmth. Stalls line the square in uneven rows, forming a small maze of woven mats, wooden tables, and clay stands. The air is rich with aromas, fresh fruit, warm bread, roasted sesame, and faint traces of incense drifting from the shrine nearby. A group of children races through the square, their bare feet kicking up soft clouds of dust. Their laughter rings clear and bright, weaving through the hum of vendors and the rustle of fabrics. Across the way, two women spread out dyed cloths, smoothing each piece with care as the colors shimmer in the growing light. Naram pauses to admire them, deep blues like river shadows, warm reds like firelight, soft browns like fertile soil. Colors tell stories here. They whisper where a trader has been, what plants he has gathered, what secrets he has learned along the roads of Mesopotamia. He moves on, passing a stand where a metalworker sharpens bronze blades on a smooth stone. Sparks flicker, rising in brief, delicate flashes before fading into the air. Beside the metalworker, a carpenter displays wooden bowls polished to a soft sheen, their surfaces smooth as river stones. Naram picks one up, feeling the grain beneath his fingertips. The bowl is light, sturdy, beautifully made, a small testament to the hands that shaped it. He buys it without negotiation, simply because it feels right to honor such craftsmanship. The carpenter smiles with quiet pride as he wraps the bowl in cloth. Farther along, a young girl sells small clay figurines shaped like protective spirits. Some are human-like with gentle expressions. Others resemble simple animals, bulls, rams, birds, each thought to bring a different blessing. Naram kneels to admire them, noticing the tiny fingerprints pressed into the clay. He chooses one shaped like a bird with wide, open wings. For safe journeys, the girl says softly as she hands it to him. Her voice is shy, but her eyes glow with a sense of purpose. He thanks her and ties the figurine to the cord around his neck. In a world as unpredictable as Mesopotamia, one can never have too many blessings. A loud call draws his attention toward the far side of the square where traders from the south have arrived. They lead camels burdened with jars of date syrup and bundles of fragrant palm fibers. Their clothes are patterned differently, colors and styles shaped by the lands they cross to reach Babylon. Naram greets them warmly, shaking hands and exchanging familiar pleasantries. He listens as they describe their journey, the night winds, the shifting dunes, the caravan bells singing softly in the dark. Such stories travel swiftly through Babylon, becoming threads in the city's expanding tapestry. Naram purchases several jars of date syrup, imagining the sweetness it will bring to his customers. He continues moving through the square, passing a group of priests walking in slow procession toward the shrine. Their robes sway gently, pale against the darker tones of the marketplace. People step aside to let them pass, bowing their heads with quiet respect. The priests carry small offerings, grains, small carved stones, bunches of herbs to bless the day's commerce. Their presence softens the space, weaving calm through the busy air. Naram whispers a short prayer as they pass, a simple request for protection, clarity, and honest trade. The shrine itself stands near the center of the square, a modest structure of mud brick and reed. Its entrance is shaded by woven mats, and a thin trail of smoke curls upward like a soft question posed to the sky. The priest at the doorway nods to Naram as he approaches. Naram offers a handful of grain, placing it gently into a small bowl at the altar. He feels the weight of the moment, simple yet profound, one person's gratitude among many. The priest murmurs a blessing, touching 2 fingers to his forehead and then to Naram's. A warmth spreads through him, calm and grounding. He steps back into the square, feeling lighter, steadier. Around him, Babylon continues to awaken with increasing vibrancy. Workers repair roof edges with new reeds, climbing nimbly across wooden beams. Children carry jars of water from the river, balancing their steps with exaggerated care. A musician tunes a stringed instrument, plucking notes that float like soft birdsong above the crowd. Naram walks slowly, taking all of it in: the sounds, the smells, the faces. Everywhere he looks, something is being built, created, traded, or shared. He senses the city's growth, not only in the new buildings rising but also in the energy that flows between its people. Babylon is no longer a scattered settlement. It is becoming a place where life gathers, thickens, and takes shape. He moves toward the northern gate of the marketplace, where a group of young men unload bundles of timber. The scent of fresh-cut wood drifts through the air, clean, sharp, almost sweet. These timbers will become beams for new homes, new workplaces, perhaps even new shrines. The thought fills Naram with a gentle excitement. Growth is no longer a distant hope. It is happening everywhere he turns. He hears teachers calling to their students from the shade of a nearby awning. The children repeat the lessons in soft unison, their voices blending into a calm, melodic rhythm. Symbols press into wet clay. Knowledge presses into young minds. Both will dry in time, solid, lasting, essential. Naram continues walking until he reaches a small rise overlooking the entire square. From here, he can see everything: the colorful stalls, the busy traders, the priests offering blessings, the children chasing one another, the artisans shaping tools and pottery, the farmers laughing as they measure grain, the fishermen carrying their morning catch, the scribes etching tiny marks into wet tablets, all of it moving as one, all of it breathing together, all of it becoming Babylon. A warm wind sweeps through the square, lifting dust in swirling patterns. It carries with it the smell of bread, the sound of drums, the murmured chants of distant prayers. Naram closes his eyes and lets the wind wash over him. He can feel the city beneath his feet, alive, growing, dreaming. A place that was once only a bend in the river now stretches its arms toward the horizon. With each brick molded, each grain traded, each prayer whispered, the city strengthens. It rises quietly, confidently, steadily. When Naram opens his eyes again, he sees the light of midday settling over everything like a blessing. The marketplace glows, with life bright, warm, full. He feels grateful to be here, to witness this transformation with his own eyes, to walk these streets as they evolve from simple paths into the veins of a great city. He whispers softly to himself, to the wind, perhaps even to the gods listening from above. Babylon is waking, and with each new day, it grows. It grows in our hands. It grows in our footsteps. It grows in our breath. He takes a final, deep breath and begins walking again, returning to his stall where customers now gather. He knows the day ahead will be busy, filled with trade, talk, decisions, and movement. But beneath all of that, he carries a quiet certainty. He is part of something rising. He is part of something ancient and new all at once. He is part of Babylon, a city awakening, a city becoming, a city that will one day stand at the center of the world. Morning arrives as a quiet gold, sliding over the rooftops of Babylon and settling softly on the widening streets. The city breathes deeply, as though waking into a new sense of itself, taller, broader, more confident than the day before. From the high terraces, sunlight spills across the river like warm liquid metal, turning the moving water into a ribbon of brilliance. People step outside their homes with an air of purpose, carrying baskets, tools, goods, and hopes for the rising day. Babylon is no longer a simple place of mud brick huts and crowded markets. It is becoming something larger, something shaped by ambition, by memory, by dreams whispered from one generation to the next. Naram, the merchant who once walked the early morning streets, now finds himself standing among buildings that he never imagined would exist. Walls that were once waist-high now tower above him, broad and steady, casting long shadows that stretch like guardians across the earth. New temples rise from the center of the city, their young bricks catching the sun as though drinking its warmth. Their peaks glimmer faintly, hinting at the monumental beauty they will someday hold. Priests wander between construction sites, offering blessings to workers who lay the heavy bricks with patience and devotion. Chants drift through the warm air, mixing with the rhythm of hammers, chisels, and dragging stones. It is not the sound of war, nor the sound of conquest. It is the sound of a city building itself, calm, steady, certain. Naram pauses near the base of a new temple, watching master builders with the admiration one gives to artists. He sees how they measure each stone with stretched cords, how they align each wall with the path of the sun. Every angle speaks to intention, every brick holds memory, every structure reflects a belief that the city is destined for greatness. And as Babylon expands, its influence begins to ripple outward slowly, naturally like waves moving across a still pond. Villages along the rivers look to Babylon for guidance. Travelers return with stories of a city where markets flourish and temples rise like mountains made by human hands. Farmers in distant regions send their grain here first, trusting Babylonian scribes to measure fairly, trusting Babylonian merchants to trade honestly. The city grows not through force, but through respect, earned gradually, gracefully. As Babylon begins to glow with prosperity, new ideas take shape within its walls. Ideas about fairness, ideas about order, ideas about how people should live together in peace and purpose. One morning, Naram walks into a courtyard where a group of scribes gathers around a tall clay tablet freshly removed from the kiln. Its surface glistens with faint traces of heat. Lines and symbols run across the tablet in clean, careful strokes. The scribes whisper to one another, studying the marks with deep reverence. Naram steps closer and asks softly, "What is written there?" The eldest scribe turns toward him, his eyes warm with pride. "Guidance," he says. "Rules for living, rules for fairness, rules so that the strong do not crush the weak." Naram nods slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. He understands that Babylon is becoming more than a place to trade, build, or worship. It is becoming a place where justice is shaped deliberately, where words pressed into clay begin to hold power equal to kings. The scribe continues, "A city cannot grow unless its people trust one another. So we write the rules, we teach them, we keep them." Naram looks at the tablet again. Its symbols shimmer softly in the morning light, each one holding meaning that will outlast the hands that wrote them. Laws, he thinks. A foundation stronger than brick, a structure taller than any temple. Babylon is learning how to govern not only land and trade, but the human heart. And as these laws spread, So does a new sense of unity, a feeling that everyone stands beneath the same sun, bound by the same principles. In the days that follow, Naram sees new shrines, new walls, new roads winding outward like arms extended to embrace the world. The city's boundaries stretch farther with each passing season. More bricks, more hands, more dreams. Everywhere he looks, Babylon is rising with purpose. Workers gather at dawn beside towering heaps of stone. Their chants echo through the air, lifting their spirits as they prepare for long, sunlit hours of labor. Priests trace protective symbols on the first stone of each new building, calling upon the gods to bless the project from foundation to rooftop. Children follow behind them with wide eyes, watching every gesture, every murmured prayer. To grow up in Babylon now is to grow up in a living classroom where buildings teach patience, laws teach kindness, and rituals teach devotion. At midday, Naram stands atop a hill overlooking the city. The view fills him with an awe so gentle it feels like sunlight resting on his skin. Below him, Babylon spreads out like an unfolding scroll. The river curves in elegant arcs around its edges. Farms ripple in green patterns between the canals. Homes rise in neat clusters, their roofs warming under the sun. And in the center, temples and tall walls stand like guardians watching over the land. The breeze carries the scent of cedar wood, wet clay, and incense. It carries the sound of chisels, the soft singing of workers, the far-off hum of market life. Naram closes his eyes and listens. This is the heartbeat of a rising empire, but not an empire of fear or conquest. An empire of intention, of order, of shared belief. A place where people can walk safely, where trade can flourish, where temples honor the gods, and where laws honor the people. He thinks of the earliest days, the reed huts, the small shrine, the tiny marketplace filled with nervous hope. How far they have come, how gently, how steadily. The transformation feels like watching a flower bloom over many seasons, slow at first, then suddenly radiant. Naram walks down from the hill as the afternoon sun reaches its warmest hour. He makes his way to a newly expanded temple, its courtyard filled with people offering baskets of grain and small clay figures. The walls are freshly painted with pigments mixed from crushed minerals, reds, blues, golds, that shimmer in the light like living flames. Inside the temple, beams of sunlight slip through narrow slits, pouring thin columns of golden light onto the stone floor. The entire space seems to glow from within. Priests walk slowly through the hall, their steps soft, their murmurs steady. The air is filled with the warm scent of burning oil and aromatic herbs. Naram stands among the worshippers, feeling the peace that settles over his shoulders like a gentle cloak. The temple feels like the heart of Babylon, a place where heaven and earth meet in quiet conversation. Outside, new walls are being raised around the city walls, tall enough to hold back floods, wide enough to support guard posts, strong enough to shelter generations. Workers shape stone with patient strokes, smoothing each edge until the blocks fit perfectly together. At sunset, when the final stones of the day are set in place, the workers stand back to admire the evolving structure. The walls catch the light and shine with a soft, warm glow. They look like the very spine of Babylon, firm, protective, full of promise. Naram walks along the path beside these walls, running his fingers across the warm brick. He feels the texture beneath his fingertips, rough yet reassuring. These walls, he thinks, are not meant only to keep danger out. They are meant to hold a dream in, a dream of a city governed by fairness, guided by faith, strengthened by cooperation. The last light of the day settles gently across Babylon, casting long shadows behind the rising structures. The city glows as though illuminated by an inner fire, steady, warm, determined. Naram looks up at the sky, where the first stars begin to emerge. He sees them reflected faintly in the river, shimmering like tiny promises sprinkled across the water. The city is quiet now, restful, content. Tomorrow, it will rise again. Tomorrow, more hands will build, more scribes will write, more laws will be shaped, more dreams will take form. And as the night deepens, Naram whispers to himself, Babylon is not only growing, it is becoming. It is stepping into the sunlight. It is learning how to be great. And beneath the stars, the city hums with a soft, steady certainty, the certainty of a rising empire, carried by the quiet strength of its people. Night settles over Babylon like a soft cloak woven from darkness and distant light. The heat of the day fades into a gentle coolness as a breeze moves quietly through the city's narrow alleys and wide courtyards. Lanterns dim, fires soften, and voices fall to a hush as Babylon prepares for its nightly conversation with the sky. Above the rooftops, stars begin to bloom one by one, like small seeds of silver scattered across an endless field. Their glow is patient, steady, ancient. Naram stands at the base of the great temple, looking upward with a quiet sense of awe. By day, this place is full of voices, footsteps, trade, and sunlight. But at night, everything changes. The temple becomes a doorway to the heavens. The air grows still, expectant. The stone steps seem to hum faintly beneath the soles of one's feet. Tonight, Naram is not here to trade or pray. He has been invited to witness something rare, something that few see closely unless they dedicate their lives to it. The work of the sky readers, the astrologers, the watchers of stars, moons, storms, and seasons. He ascends the long staircase carved into the side of the temple, each step warmed by the sun's memory but cooled by the night breeze. His hand trails along the smooth stone wall as he climbs, guided by torchlight flickering in iron brackets. The higher he goes, the quieter the world becomes, until only the sound of wind and his own breathing remain. At last he reaches the top platform, a broad, open space crowned by a low parapet. Here, the sky feels impossibly close. A group of sky readers stand near the center, their robes shifting softly like shadows moving within shadows. Their faces glow faintly in the light of a small clay lamp placed on a stone pedestal. The flame dances gently, casting warm gold across the smooth surface of wet clay tablets lying nearby. Naram steps toward them with respectful silence. One of the elders turns, nods, and motions for him to come closer. The elder's face is lined with years of patience, of long nights spent watching the heavens. His eyes reflect the stars above as though they live inside him. "Welcome," the elder whispers, his voice low and calm. "Tonight, the sky is clear. Tonight, the gods speak." Naram feels a soft shiver along his spine, not fear, but a sense of standing at the edge of something vast and mysterious. The sky above is enormous, stretching from horizon to horizon, so wide that it seems to cradle the world. The moon hangs low over the city, round and luminous like a bowl of milk poured into the darkness. Stars shimmer in delicate clusters, forming patterns that only the trained eye can truly understand. The elder lifts a long reed pointer and traces a slow arc across the sky. "Look there," he whispers. "That bright star near the curve of the moon that one rises at this angle only in certain seasons. It tells us the rains will come later this year." Naram watches as another sky reader kneels beside a clay tablet and presses symbols into its surface with a stylus. Each mark is precise, no rush, no hesitation, just steady, intentional strokes. These marks capture the moon's position, the angle of the star, the direction of the wind, the faint glow along the horizon. The sky readers record everything. The heavens are their scroll, their teacher, their scripture. To them, each star is a word, each cloud is a message. Each shifting light is a sign that the gods are speaking through the fabric of the sky. Naram moves closer to the parapet and looks down at the sleeping city. Babylon below is lit by scattered lamps, glowing softly like embers strewn across the earth. The river shines with streaks of moonlight, winding through the land like a silver serpent resting beneath the stars. He inhales deeply, breathing in cool air scented faintly with burning oil from the distant docks. Behind him, the astrologers murmur to one another, their voices blending with the wind in a soft, melodic rhythm. One reads the stars aloud, naming constellations and measuring angles with a carved wooden tool. Another presses calculations into the tablet. The moon's phase, the stars' arc, the hour of the night based on the shadows cast by the flame. The night is their companion, and silence is their language. Naram listens, entranced. He feels as though he is witnessing the shaping of knowledge itself, knowledge that will guide farmers, merchants, priests, and rulers. The elder turns to him again, eyes glowing with the reflection of constellations. "Do you see how the stars move?" he asks softly. "They are not random, they are not chaotic. They follow paths older than our oldest stories." Naram nods slowly. The elder continues, "Our duty is to listen to those paths, to learn from them, to understand what the gods wish to tell us." He gestures to the sky with a slow sweep of his hand. "The heavens are a map, a calendar, a message, a warning, a blessing, all at once." Naram watches as the astrologers shift their attention to the moon now. Its bright surface glows with perfect clarity, unmarred by cloud or haze. One sky reader holds up a thin bronze disc with circular cutouts. He aligns it carefully with the moon, noting the angle and the brightness. A second scribe kneels to record the measurement on another clay tablet. The stylus taps quietly, soft, rhythmic, like raindrops falling on a roof. These tablets, Naram knows, will be stored in the temple archives, added to the long lineage of sky records kept for generations. They contain dates, cycles, omens, eclipses, storms, seasons. They are the memory of the sky, the foundation of Babylonian astronomy. Knowledge passed from teacher to student, from elder to apprentice, like a flame carried gently through the centuries. The elder steps beside Naram and lifts the clay lamp, holding it toward the heavens. "Fire," he whispers, "is our small imitation of the stars." He sets the lamp back down carefully, its tiny flame flicking with the breeze. And yet, from this little flame, we understand shadows. We understand time. We understand that the gods reveal themselves in patterns. Naram looks out over the landscape again. The sky feels impossibly large, yet the astrologers stand beneath it with unbroken calm, as though they carry centuries of certainty in their bones. The elder raises his face to the stars and closes his eyes. The night wind brushes against his robes, lifting them slightly like wings. In a voice barely louder than breath, he whispers, "What are you saying tonight, great ones?" The other astrologers bow their heads. Some murmur soft prayers, some simply listen. Naram feels the question settle deep inside him, quiet but powerful. He wonders about the stories written above him, stories he cannot yet read, but longs to understand. The sky pulses with quiet life, its stars shining like distant, patient eyes. The moon slides slowly across its path, unhurried, assured. The planet Jupiter glows at the edge of the horizon, bright and steadfast. Naram overhears one sky reader whisper, "The shepherd's star is strong tonight. Perhaps it brings good fortune." Another replies softly, "Or change, or warning." Their voices are not fearful, only curious, only devoted. As Naram stands among them, he realizes something profound. These men do not worship the stars. They read them. They listen to them. They translate the language of the heavens into guidance for the city, for kings, for priests, for ordinary people who plant fields, raise children, and walk the streets each day. In Babylon, science and faith are not separate. They share the same sky, they share the same breath. They stand hand in hand on this quiet rooftop, learning from one another beneath the vast canopy of night. A new breeze sweeps across the temple top, carrying with it the distant sound of waves lapping softly against the riverbanks. Naram lifts his face to the wind, feeling the coolness brush against his skin. The stars shimmer above him, calm and eternal. The city sleeps below, breathing in slow, even rhythms. The sky readers continue their work, steady and focused, unfazed by the passing hours. Time moves differently up here, slower, gentler, guided by celestial rhythms instead of human clocks. Naram closes his eyes, allowing the night to cradle him. He feels at peace, suspended between the earth and the stars. Tonight, he is part of something ancient, something sacred, something bound to the very birth of civilization. And as the first hour of night passes quietly into the second, Naram whispers to himself, "The sky is speaking, and we are learning to listen." The night deepens gently, wrapping the rooftop in a calm so complete that even the sound of footsteps seems softened. Naram stands among the sky readers, feeling as though time itself has slowed to match the rhythm of the stars. A young apprentice moves quietly between the elders, carrying a basket filled with freshly smoothed clay tablets. Each tablet rests warm against the night air, ready to receive the sky's messages. The apprentice's eyes shine with quiet excitement, for he knows that these tablets will be kept for generations. Naram watches him kneel beside a low table and place the tablets gently in a neat row. The boy's hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from reverence. He looks up at the sky as though meeting an old teacher. One of the elders nods to him, giving permission to begin. The apprentice picks up a stylus shaped from a carefully carved reed. He waits for a moment, breathing slowly, letting the night settle into him. Then he presses the first mark into the clay. A soft sound follows, barely more than a whisper, as the stylus slips into the smooth surface. That tiny sound feels sacred, like the beginning of a story that has been told 1,000 times yet is always new. The elder stands beside him, pointing to a bright cluster of stars rising above the eastern horizon. "These are the stars of the Scorpion," he murmurs. "Tonight they rise earlier than last season. Record it." The apprentice nods, his stylus moving with growing confidence. Naram leans closer, watching each symbol appear with slow precision. The marks look simple, yet he senses their weight. In these lines lies the memory of the sky. In these symbols lies the future of the city. A second sky reader steps forward, holding a small circular tool cut into measured angles. He aligns it carefully with the moon's edge, tilting his head slightly as he observes the shadowed curve. "The moon is entering its 7th night," he says softly. "It moves with steady purpose." Another scribe kneels to capture the observation, tapping the tablet lightly between pauses. The rhythm of stylus on clay becomes an anchor in the quiet space, steady, delicate, eternal. The night breeze sweeps across the rooftop again, fluttering the edges of the sky reader's robes. It carries with it a faint trace of incense from the temple below, mixing with the cool scent of river water rising from the depths. One elder lifts his gaze to the far horizon where a faint red glow begins to emerge. "There," he whispers, pointing. "Mars." The red planet rises slowly, its light soft yet unmistakably bold. The astrologers fall silent. Mars is a planet of meaning, an omen of change, strength, conflict, or transformation depending on its course. Naram feels a strange shiver ripple through him as he watches the planet climb. But the sky readers do not fear it. They observe, they measure, they listen. A tall sky reader steps forward, his voice a low hum. Mars rises early tonight, he says. It speaks of movement in the world. But movement is not always danger. It may be growth. It may be a turning of seasons in the hearts of men. He glances toward the clay tablets. Record it. 2 scribes immediately kneel, pressing symbols into the wet clay with steady hands. Their shadows stretch long across the stone floor, merging almost seamlessly with the darkness beyond. Naram marvels at the discipline of these men, their patience, their devotion, their ability to see meaning where others see only lights in the sky. The elder approaches him once more, sensing the questions forming in Naram's heart. "You wonder how we know," the elder says gently. Naram nods without speaking. "How we read this vast expanse," the elder continues. "How we give words to stars and meaning to their paths." He gestures to the sky, his hand sweeping slowly across the brilliant canopy. "We learn by watching, we learn by listening, we learn by remembering." He touches the edge of a clay tablet, "And we learn by writing. These records," he says, "are the breath of the sky made solid. They allow us to look beyond a single lifetime. They allow us to see patterns that only centuries reveal." Naram gazes at the tablets with new understanding. He realizes that these symbols are not simply observations, they are the beating heart of Babylon's knowledge. The clay tablets will teach future generations when to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for storms. They will guide priests in their rituals. They will guide rulers in making decisions for the city. They will shape the flow of time itself. A younger sky reader takes his place at the parapet, holding a polished bronze bowl that reflects the stars like a small, shimmering pool. He tilts the bowl slowly, watching how the reflections shift across its curved surface. "The gods show themselves in patterns," he murmurs. "To understand the reflections is to understand the heavens." He sets the bowl down in the center of the rooftop. The flame from the clay lamp flickers nearby, casting faint golden ripples across the bronze. The combination of star reflections and warm light makes the bowl glow as though lit from within. "It is beautiful," Naram whispers. The sky reader smiles softly. "Beauty is the first language of the gods. Patterns are the second." He dips his fingers gently into the bowl's cool surface, breaking the reflections into shimmering pieces. "Truth," he adds, "is the third." Naram lets the words settle inside him like warm embers. He turns his gaze upward again. The constellations seem sharper now, clearer, as though the sky itself has moved closer. The elder raises his hand to the heavens, tracing a slow, graceful arc. "Look there," he whispers. "That line of stars marks the beginning of a new season. The season when the river swells, when the earth grows fertile, when life renews itself." The astrologers bow their heads in acknowledgement. One of them whispers, "Blessed be the cycles." Another murmurs, "Blessed be the heavens that guide us." Naram closes his eyes for a moment, letting the words sink deeply. He feels the sacredness of the night, thick and warm around him. He feels the presence of gods not in bodies or voices, but in the quiet precision of the stars. He feels the ancient link between man and sky, unbroken through countless ages. When he opens his eyes again, the sky seems even wider. The stars glow brighter. The moon glides farther along its path, and Mars shines with a bold, unwavering pulse. The elder moves closer to the parapet and rests both hands on the cool stone edge. "The gods speak," he murmurs, "but only the patient hear them." Naram breathes slowly, absorbing the lesson. He feels calm, centered, whole. The night wraps around him like soft fabric. The stars shimmer like gentle lanterns suspended in an infinite hall. Below them, Babylon sleeps, unaware that the heavens are being read for its sake. And above them, the sky watchers continue their ancient task, soft voices, steady hands, eyes lifted toward eternity. The night flows on, silent and immense. And Naram whispers to himself, "I understand a little more. The sky is not far. It is close. It is speaking." The night grows deeper, settling into a quiet so complete that even the breath of the city below seems to fade into stillness. The astrologers continue their work beneath the vast dome of stars, moving with a calm and unhurried grace. Their robes shift gently in the warm night wind, whispering against the stone like soft echoes of forgotten stories. Naram stands among them, feeling as though he has stepped into a sacred world suspended between earth and heaven. A world where time flows slower, where silence speaks, where meaning hides in the glow of distant suns. One of the elders lifts a small wooden box from beside the clay lamp. The box creaks softly as he opens it, revealing a set of delicate measuring cords and polished bone markers. "These," he says quietly, "are the tools of our lineage, passed from teacher to apprentice since the earliest days." He hands one of the cords to a younger sky reader, who stretches it carefully against the night air. The cord aligns with the constellation overhead, forming a perfect angle used to measure celestial movement. Naram observes, fascinated by how something so simple can unlock the secrets of the cosmos. The elder turns to him again, his eyes reflecting the shimmering sky. "We do not command the heavens," he whispers. "We follow them. We learn from them. We trust them." Naram nods, absorbed in every word. The elder lifts the cord slightly. "See how the stars fall along this line? They have followed this path since long before we were born, and they will continue long after we are gone." For a moment, Naram feels the weight of generations pressing gently around him. Countless watchers who stood on this same rooftop, reading the same stars, breathing the same night air. The thought fills him with a serene humility. He feels small, but not insignificant. He feels placed, as though standing exactly where he is meant to stand. A soft chime rings out as another scribe taps his stylus against the clay tablet to clear off excess dust. Then he resumes writing, pressing each symbol with slow, deliberate intent. The tablet captures the precise position of the moon, the rising of Mars, the arc of the constellations, the softness of the wind. It is a map of the moment, a record of the sky's whisper, a still photograph of the heavens, preserved in clay. When the tablet is complete, the scribe lifts it gently with both hands. He carries it to a sheltered corner of the rooftop, placing it among dozens of other tablets arranged in tidy stacks. Each tablet represents a night of watching. Each stack represents a season. Each shelf represents a generation. Naram steps closer to look at the rows of tablets, sensing the immense time contained in their simple forms. "These are our teachers," the elder says quietly behind him. "Our memories, our mirrors. They show us the cycles of the moon, the movement of the planets, the turning of years, the shape of eclipses that mark the lives of kings, and the rising of stars that signal the harvest." Naram traces a finger gently above one of the tablets, afraid to touch but drawn to its presence. He feels the depth of these records not just as marks in clay, but as the heartbeat of Babylon's knowledge. The elder steps beside him, folding his hands within his sleeves. "Every city builds walls," he murmurs, "but not every city builds memory." Naram looks at him, understanding blooming like slow dawn. "Babylon," the elder continues, "will be remembered not only for its buildings, but for its way of seeing, its way of listening, its way of reading the sky." The words send a warm feeling through Naram's chest, as though something inside him has quietly aligned with the heavens. Another breeze sweeps across the rooftop, carrying the faint rustle of palm leaves from the riverbanks. The night remains clear, open, and full. One sky reader lifts his face toward a faint streak of light crossing the horizon. "A comet," he whispers. The others gather near him, observing with calm reverence. It glides silently across the dark, its tail shimmering like a soft brushstroke of silver. The comet grows brighter for a moment, then continues on its ancient path, leaving behind a fading trail. Naram watches in awe, the sight filling him with a wordless peace. The elder approaches him again and places a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You have seen something few witness closely," he says softly. "But remember, the stars are not distant gods, they are companions. They walk with us through time. They show us where we stand in the great story of the world." Naram closes his eyes, letting the words sink deep into him. He feels the world expand and soften at the same time. He feels the quiet certainty of belonging. When he opens his eyes again, the sky seems even more alive. The constellations shimmer with calm intelligence. The planets glow with quiet confidence. The moon continues its slow journey like a steady guardian. And Babylon below sleeps with the gentle, trusting breath of a child watched over by ancient eyes. The elder steps forward and raises both hands toward the heavens. In a voice soft as drifting ash, he whispers a prayer. "May we always read your signs with humility. May we always walk in the rhythm of your seasons. May we always listen when you speak." The other sky readers bow their heads, their robes whispering like wings folding. Naram bows too, feeling the moment settle into him with the warmth of truth. Silence fills the rooftop, thick and gentle. The stars watch, the wind listens, the night holds everything tenderly. Then the elder lowers his hands and steps back. "Our work is done for tonight," he murmurs. "The sky has spoken." The scribes gather the tablets carefully, carrying them down the long staircase toward the temple archives. The astrologers extinguish all but one flame, leaving a single small lamp flickering beside the parapet. Its glow is warm and steady, like a tiny star kept close to the earth. Naram lingers for a moment, taking one last look at the sky that feels so impossibly vast yet intimately connected. He inhales deeply, letting the cool night air settle into his lungs. The rooftop feels like a dream he does not want to leave. The elder approaches him one final time. "Come back when the sky turns again," he says gently. "There is always more to learn." Naram nods, gratitude filling him like a slow, rising tide. He begins the descent down the long stairway, his footsteps soft, his heart steady. The night wraps around him as he walks, peaceful and deep. Below, Babylon sleeps under the same stars he has just studied, quiet, trusting, and full of destiny. Halfway down the staircase, he turns for one last glance at the rooftop. The solitary lamp flickers in the wind, its flame unwavering. A reminder, a promise, a symbol of knowledge carried through darkness. Naram continues downward, the sound of his steps echoing faintly against the stone. He carries with him the calm of the night. He carries the whispers of the stars. He carries the quiet certainty that the heavens are not far. They are close, they are listening. And Babylon, rising steadily beneath the gaze of the sky, is learning to listen too. The evening settles over Babylon with a tenderness that feels almost like an apology. The once bright city glows now in muted shades of amber, its brilliance softened by time's slow hand. A faint desert breeze drifts through the streets, carrying with it the smell of sand and distant winds. It moves gently, brushing past stone walls, slipping through narrow alleys, whispering quiet messages only the city can understand. Naram stands at the edge of the processional way, watching the fading light settle over the blue bricks of the Ishtar Gate. They still shimmer, but no longer with the fierce radiance of earlier years. Their glow feels subdued, as though wrapped in a thin layer of dust. Still beautiful, still proud, but softer, calmer, changed. The processional way stretches out before him, as it always has, but today the crowds are thinner. Fewer merchants set out their goods. Fewer travelers arrive at the gates. Fewer children run laughing across the stones. Life continues, but with a gentler rhythm, a quieter pulse. Naram inhales the cool air, feeling an ache he cannot fully name. He remembers the days when the street thrummed with noise, laughter, music, shouts of traders, chants from nearby shrines. Now the sounds remain, but in smaller doses, as if the city is speaking in a whisper rather than a song. He walks slowly toward the market, noticing empty spaces where stalls once stood. Some merchants have moved on to seek fortune elsewhere. Some have grown old. Some simply packed their things and drifted away like leaves carried off by the wind. A potter still displays his jars, but fewer than before. A weaver sits quietly at her loom, working slower than the years prior. A scribe waits at his usual corner, but no customers approach him today. They smile at Naram as he passes, soft, tired smiles that carry decades of memory. Farther ahead, the small shrine glows with its usual evening light, but even here, change whispers. Only a handful of worshippers kneel inside. Their chants echo faintly across the stone floor, softer than they once were. The priest moves with the same grace, but the ritual feels different, not rushed, not diminished, but quieter, as though the gods themselves have begun to speak more gently. Naram steps inside, bowing his head as the scent of incense fills his lungs. It is familiar, comforting, yet tinged with a hint of melancholy. The priest greets him with a nod that carries both warmth and understanding. "They come less often now," the priest murmurs, his voice low, "but those who come still carry devotion." Naram nods, feeling the truth of it settle in his chest. A city may lose its crowds, its noise, its grandeur, but devotion lingers. A small offering sits on the altar, a bowl of grain, a sprig of herbs, a small clay bird. Simple, sincere. Outside the shrine, the evening deepens into a soft shade of violet. Naram continues walking, his sandals brushing against the stones in slow, steady rhythm. He turns into a quiet residential street where lamps flicker in gentle intervals. Families sit outside their homes, sharing meals in the cool dusk. Children listen to stories told by elders whose voices waver like thin threads of memory. Laughter still appears here and there, but it floats more lightly than before, like something precious being carefully preserved. Naram stops at a doorway where his neighbor, an elderly man, sits carving patterns into a wooden box. The man looks up, offering a smile softened by time. "The world outside shifts," he says quietly. "I can feel it in the wind." Naram nods. He, too, has felt the subtle tremors of change, not loud, not harsh, but present. Rumors drift in from the roads like faint dust clouds carried by distant hooves. Whispers of new powers rising to the east. Talk of envoys passing through nearby towns. Mentions of a foreign king whose name is beginning to travel far. But these words arrive gently, not with fear or urgency. They feel like the early winds of autumn, cool, inevitable, soft. Babylon has lived long enough to recognize the feeling. Naram sits beside the old man for a moment, watching the carving knife trace slow lines in the wood. "You think change is coming?" he asks softly. The old man chuckles under his breath. "Change always comes," he says. "It is the nature of the world. But Babylon..." He taps the box lightly. Babylon continues. Naram smiles at the simple truth of it. The stars begin appearing above the city, their light faint but steady. A few boats drift along the canal, their lanterns glowing like small fireflies moving gently through the dark water. Naram walks toward the canal and watches the reflections dance. The temples, once blazing with brightness, now cast softer shapes across the water. The grand ziggurat still rises proudly, but its terraces hold more shadows than before. Even the torches that line the processional way flicker with gentler flames. Yet the city remains beautiful, profoundly, achingly beautiful. a beauty aged like evening light over polished stone. As he sits at the canal's edge, a faint bell rings from the temple towers. It is a familiar sound, but quieter than he remembers, less urgent, less bright, more like a memory than a call. Naram closes his eyes and listens. He can almost hear the echo of older days, when the bells rang loudly, proudly, boldly. But now they sound like a sigh drifting across the rooftops, a sigh of acceptance, a sigh of transition. The desert wind picks up again, rustling the surface of the water and carrying sand into the city in soft swirls. It brushes past Naram's clothing, whispering of distant horizons and shifting banners. He knows others have heard these whispers too. He has seen people pause in the streets, listening. He has watched them glance toward the eastern gate with expressions that are not fearful, just curious, just knowing. A sense of nearing change hangs in the air, like the quiet before the first leaf falls from an autumn tree. But no one panics. No one trembles. The city moves gently into the evening, each person continuing the tasks of daily life as though nothing unusual is happening. Because in truth, nothing is unusual for Babylon. Babylon has endured storms, droughts, rising empires, fading ones, and it has always stood, sometimes bright, sometimes dim, but always standing. Naram rises from the canal edge, feeling the soft ache of nostalgia as he looks across the dimming city. He places a hand against the smooth stone railing and whispers, "We remain." The city seems to breathe in response, calm and steady. Lights flicker in doorways. Children curl into sleep. Priests extinguish the last lamps of the shrine. The wind sighs softly as it drifts down the empty processional way. Babylon rests, not fallen, not fading, just resting, waiting for whatever tomorrow brings. The night deepens, wrapping Babylon in a gentle shawl of darkness threaded with faint starlight. Naram walks slowly along the quiet canal, feeling the cool air settle softly against his skin. The water moves with a lazy rhythm, untouched by urgency, reflecting the glow of a few scattered lamps that still burn along the riverbank. He watches the ripples shift and settle, as though the city is breathing in slow, measured sighs. Behind him, he hears the last sounds of evening drifting from the streets. A mother humming a lullaby. A clay pot being set carefully on a shelf. A final door closing for the night. Everything feels softer now, thinner, as if the city is moving through a gentle fading of light. Naram rests his hands on the cool stone railing of the canal bridge and listens to the distant murmur of voices traveling like ghostly threads through the night air. He can't make out the words, but he can hear the tone, soft, concerned, accepting. It is the sound of people who know change is near, yet do not fear it. The breeze shifts, carrying with it a few lonely grains of desert sand. They glide across the stone like tiny wandering souls before settling quietly. A cart rolls slowly through a nearby street, its wheels creaking with an old, familiar sound. Only one lantern hangs from its side, swaying gently as the cart turns a corner and disappears. A sign of quieter commerce, quieter days. Life still moves, but with a different rhythm, a slower cadence, a soft retreat from the vibrant pulse that once filled every hour. Naram walks past the once crowded market square, now nearly empty. Only 2 stalls remain open beneath the dim glow of hanging lamps. A woman sells a handful of bread loaves, each one smaller than before, made from the last grain of the season. An elderly man polishes a single bronze figurine, the rest of his stock already sold or stored away. They greet Naram with tired but sincere smiles. He stops to talk with them, but their voices carry a faint wistfulness, the tone of people who remember busier days and accept that they may not return. A group of travelers sits nearby on woven mats, sipping warm water flavored with herbs. Their faces are calm, but their clothes bear symbols. Naram doesn't recognize patterns and threads from lands farther east. He senses in them not threat, but transition, messengers of a world shifting quietly, inevitably. One traveler glances at Naram and offers a gentle nod. "We hear the east is rising," he says softly. Naram returns the nod, acknowledging what he already knows but has not spoken aloud. "Yes," he replies, "the winds carry their stories." The traveler smiles with sympathy, as though understanding the weight of those unsaid words. "But your city," he murmurs, glancing around, "still feels peaceful." Naram looks across the dim square and feels the truth of that statement settle inside him. Babylon is peaceful, not defeated, not broken, just gentler now, just quieter, like a fire that once blazed brilliantly and now glows with steady embers. He continues walking, letting the night guide his steps toward the great Ishtar gate. When he arrives, he pauses. The gate still stands tall, still beautiful, still painted in deep blues that catch the lantern light in soft waves. But fewer torches burn around it tonight. And the great road beyond it, the processional way, lies mostly empty. Naram approaches the gatekeeper, an old man whose beard has grown silver over decades of standing watch. The gatekeeper smiles faintly when he sees him. "You feel it too, don't you?" the old man whispers. Naram nods, resting a hand on the cool blue bricks. "It's like the city is." Exhaling, Naram says quietly. The old man chuckles softly, a slow breath before a new dawn. They stand in silence together as the wind stirs lightly between the towering walls. A soft rustle rises through the night, the sound of palm leaves shifting outside the city, the distant sigh of the desert. Naram wonders how many travelers are crossing the sands at this moment, carrying news that will soon reach Babylon. He imagines them drawing closer, not as conquerors, not as flames or swords, but as a tide. A slow-moving tide that reshapes the shore without roaring. Behind him, a small group of priests walks toward the gate, their robes pale in the dim firelight. Their steps are gentle, almost hesitant, as though they too feel the shifting air. One priest bows his head toward Naram before turning toward the horizon. "The gods whisper of change," he says softly. "But change need not bring fear." Naram feels the words settle inside him like warm ashes. He watches as the priests move toward the outer walls, lighting 2 additional lamps, not to repel anything, but to welcome what comes. Inside the city, the sounds grow even softer as night drapes itself fully across the rooftops. Naram returns to the canal and watches as a thin mist forms above the water. It moves like a ghostly veil, shimmering in the sparse lamplight. He feels a sense of mourning rise inside him, not sharp, not painful, but gentle. A melancholy acceptance that a golden age is ending. He runs his hand along the cool stone ledge and breathes deeply. The scent of the desert fills his lungs dry, ancient, wise. A reminder that empires rise and fall as naturally as seasons shift, that no brilliance lasts forever, that even the greatest light must soften eventually into dusk. But Babylon does not resist. It does not rage against the fading. It stands with dignity, welcoming the transition like an elder watching the approach of autumn. Naram closes his eyes and listens to the wind swirl through the quiet streets. He imagines the footsteps of those who will enter the city soon. Strangers, envoys, new rulers, new ideas. They will walk through the gate, not with force, but with purpose, with calm, with inevitability. And Babylon, ancient, wise, enduring, will open its doors as it always has. Naram exhales slowly, the truth settling deeper. Change is coming, but not as fire or ruin. It comes like the dawn of a new season, cool, soft, inevitable. He whispers to the quiet city, "We remain." Even as the winds shift, even as the lights dim, even as a new age approaches on silent feet. Dawn approaches slowly, brushing the horizon with a pale silver glow that spreads like the first breath after a long night. Naram wakes before the sun fully rises, drawn by a strange stillness in the air, a stillness not of fear, but of expectation. He steps outside his home and notices how quiet the streets are, even for morning. No bustling merchants setting up stalls, no early chatter from fishermen loading their nets, no small footsteps of children running ahead of their parents, just a gentle silence, woven into the cool morning air like a thin blanket. A few neighbors stand by their doorways, gazing toward the eastern gate with soft, resigned expressions. They look neither anxious nor alarmed, only aware, only accepting. Naram moves toward the processional way, the stones cool beneath his feet. The blue bricks of the Ishtar gate glow faintly in the early light, their deep color softened by the morning haze. He reaches the avenue, just as a soft breeze stirs the banners overhead. The air smells of sand, and something unfamiliar, something new, clean, distant. A few priests walk silently toward the gate, their torches unlit, their robes fluttering like pale wings. Behind them, the gatekeepers stand with hands clasped, their faces calm, their posture steady. The city has opened its doors, not with shouts, not with urgency, but with quiet dignity. Naram stands beside them as the sun finally crests the horizon, spilling warm, golden light across the street. The first rays illuminate the blue gate, making it gleam as though awakening for one last glance at its own brilliance. In the distance, a small procession appears, figures moving slowly, steadily, without haste. They carry no flaming banners, no clashing steel, no roaring beasts, just a quiet symbol of a new order approaching, gentle as a morning breeze. The Persians, not as conquerors, as inheritors of a moment. Naram watches them draw closer, feeling no dread, only the soft ache of witnessing history shift before his eyes. The priests step forward, hands raised in calm greeting. The gatekeepers bow their heads. Citizens begin to gather, fewer than in years before, but enough to form a silent, respectful line along the processional way. The strangers reach the gate, pause, and exchange a solemn nod with the priests. Then they step across the threshold, no force, no resistance, just footsteps echoing softly against ancient stone. A transition as gentle as dust settling after wind, as quiet as leaves falling in autumn, as peaceful as dawn spreading across the river. Naram feels his chest tighten, not with fear, but with bittersweet realization. This is how Babylon changes, not with destruction, not with flames, but with acceptance, with patience, with the dignity of a city that knows its worth does not end with its rule. The Persian leader, calm and measured, walks past Naram with a nod that carries respect rather than dominance. His soldiers follow at the same quiet pace, their armor catching the sunrise in brief, soft glimmers. Around them, Babylon remains still, listening, observing, welcoming. The priests guide the newcomers toward the heart of the city, speaking in low voices. The people watch with serene eyes, some with hands pressed gently to their chests. A woman offers a clay cup of water to a passing soldier, who accepts it with a bow. An elder murmurs, "The gods watch over all who enter." A child, curious but unafraid, reaches toward one of the newcomers and receives a gentle smile in return. Naram feels tears prick lightly at the corners of his eyes, not of sorrow, but of profound tenderness. The city he loves is yielding gracefully, giving way without bending, without breaking. The sun rises higher, painting the canal in warm amber as morning finally takes hold. Light dances across the water, scattering in bright fragments that shimmer like tiny promises. Naram walks toward the canal, watching as the reflections shift beneath the steps of the new arrivals. The temples still stand, The statues remain steady. The walls hold firm. Babylon has not fallen. It has simply opened, simply changed hands, simply turned a page. He sits at the water's edge, placing his palm against the warm stone. A deep, quiet calm settles inside him. He watches the soft breeze ripple across the canal, bending the reflections of the city into new shapes. And for the first time, he understands that the beauty of Babylon is not only in its height, but also in its grace as it descends, in its ability to bow without collapsing, to dim without disappearing, to welcome the new without erasing the old. The Persian banners flutter gently above the gate now, blending with the blue tiles in a strangely harmonious way. The sight does not feel like erasure, it feels like evolution, a continuation. The world shifts, but Babylon remains, not as a ruler, but as a memory, a foundation, a spirit carried forward. Naram closes his eyes and lets the breeze brush across his cheeks. He inhales deeply, filling his lungs with the warm morning air, and in that breath he feels the entire history of Babylon, its rise, its brilliance, its long quieting, its peaceful surrender. He rises slowly, looking once more at the city bathed in gold. He whispers to the wind, "Even in this, we endure. Even in change, we remain." The wind carries the words through the streets, slipping past homes and temples, weaving itself into the morning. The lights may have dimmed, the crowds may have thinned, the age may be ending, but Babylon, quiet, wise, eternal, lives on, in stones, in stories, in memory, and in the hearts of those who walked its glowing streets. The desert evening settles slowly over the ruins, letting the last light of the sun drape itself across broken stone and silent earth. A warm breeze drifts through the empty pathways of ancient Babylon, carrying fine grains of sand that shimmer faintly in the fading gold. In the silence, the land breathes with memory. Soft whispers of stories linger among the fallen walls, as though the city still hums beneath the surface of time. Naram is long gone, the priests are gone, the merchants, the children, the song of the processional way gone, but something remains, something deeper than the walls, older than the bricks, stronger than the rise and fall of empires, something that does not crumble, something that echoes, a voice shaped not from stone, but from the ideas Babylon left behind. The evening breeze brushes the remnants of a once towering gate, now only a fragment of blue-glazed brick half buried in the sand. Even in ruin, the color still holds. A quiet reminder of the hands that built it, a whisper of a time when the city shimmered like a star beneath the sun. A fragment of eternity locked in clay. The wind moves on, slipping between the remnants of a courtyard where scribes once pressed stories, laws, and the breath of civilization into tablets of wet earth. The clay is dust now, but the knowledge survived. Babylon's writing cuneiform, wedge-shaped like small footprints of thought, became the spine of human memory. Across centuries, it taught the world how to record time, how to keep accounts, how to preserve stories so they do not vanish into the wind. Even now, scholars bend over those ancient marks, tracing the strokes of hands long turned to sand. And each stroke whispers, "We were here, we wrote, we remembered." The wind moves again, gliding up the broken steps of a ruined tower once used by sky readers. Here, on these heights, wise men and women once studied the heavens, charting the moon's slow dance and the wandering paths of bright planets. They measured eclipses with shadows and firelight. They read destiny in the curve of constellations. And they left behind the earliest maps of the sky. Today, astronomers across the world recognize the same constellations Babylon named, the same cycles Babylon recorded, the same lunar months Babylon carved into clay. Every time a scientist watches the moon curve across the sky, a quiet echo of Babylon moves with it, a thin thread connecting past to present, a soft, steady heartbeat beneath the vast dome of night. The breeze drifts onward, passing the edge of a crumbled hall where judges once stood to read the laws of the land. Here, fairness was shaped word by word. Here, rulers carved rules to protect the weak from the powerful. Here, the idea of justice grew into something lasting. Babylon's laws, simple at first, but profound, laid foundations for systems the world still uses today. To keep order, to protect life, to give shape to civilization. Even now, when someone speaks of fairness, accountability, responsibility, the echo of Babylon is there. Quiet, steady, enduring. The wind curls deeper through the ruins and settles in a hollow chamber where ancient prayers once rose like smoke toward the heavens. And though the city is silent now, its spiritual influence remains. Babylon shaped the early beliefs of the Jewish people in profound ways. Here, in exile, they wrote and rewrote sacred texts. Here, they reimagined identity. Here, they shaped ideas that later formed pillars of Christianity and Islam. Babylon exists in those stories, sometimes as a symbol, sometimes as a lesson, always as a presence. The Western world remembers Babylon even when it does not realize it. In myths of mysterious towers reaching toward the sky, in tales of gardens hanging in impossible heights, in legends of kings, prophets, visions, and golden days long past, Babylon lives in paintings, in music, in films, in the quiet corners of libraries where old tales wait to be read again. The city is gone, but its shadow stretches across millennia, not dark, not heavy, just long like the shadow of a tree at sunset. Nahum would not recognize the ruins now, but if he stood here in the evening light, he would close his eyes and feel the same wind. He would hear the desert sighing softly against the broken walls. He would feel the pulse of something ancient beneath his feet. He would sense the presence of a city that still lives in memory, and he would understand that Babylon never truly died. It shifted into another form, from stone to story, from bricks to ideas, from temples to teachings, from bustling streets to quiet echoes in the world's imagination. The sun sinks lower now, brushing the ruins with a final wash of red and gold. The scattered bricks glow faintly in the fading light, as though holding onto the last warmth of the day. Long shadows stretch across the sand, reaching toward the horizon like gentle fingers. A single flute note drifts through the air, a soft, lonely sound carried by the wind from some distant traveler or wandering shepherd. It rises, falls, and fades, leaving behind a silence that feels peaceful rather than empty. Nahum's city is gone, but the whispers remain. In the laws we write, in the stars we measure, in the stories we tell, in the faiths we follow, in the memories we carry forward without even knowing their ancient origins. The desert wind begins to cool as night approaches. The sky above deepens into blue, then indigo. The first stars appear quiet, patient, eternal, just as they once appeared above a thriving Babylon thousands of years ago, just as they will appear above new cities long after today's have crumbled. The ruins settle into stillness, wrapped in the long breath of evening, and as the final light fades, a gentle truth settles over the land. Babylon is not lost. It is simply quiet now, quiet like a story waiting to be retold, quiet like embers beneath soft ash, quiet like memory resting at the edge of sleep. And somewhere within that quiet, a whisper rises, ancient, steady, comforting. When you close your eyes, the old winds of Mesopotamia are still there, telling the story of a city that lived for more than 3,000 years. A long, calm breath seems to pass over the desert, a sigh, a blessing, an ending. and the night embraces Babylon once more.